What's up, guys? Ben here, and today we have a very, very special guest. We've got Hans here to talk about testosterone optimization, androgen optimization. I've been following this guy for the last 5 years, and I attribute, I'd say, about 80 to 90% of my success in terms of, optimizing my health to his content. So, this is a very special episode, and I think you'll gain a lot of value in terms of improving yourself. In terms of how your hormones are actually going to play a part in becoming the best man possible. But yeah, I mean, Hans, if you don't mind, just giving us an introduction into who you are and what you do.
All right. I'm probably one of the most hormone obsessed guys you'll ever meet. I've been obsessing about testosterone for the last 10 years. So I can give you a quick backstory if you would like, or what do you think?
Yes, please, please.
All right. So the funny thing is, although I'm really obsessed about testosterone, as a man, I didn't even know a man had testosterone. It could be modified or manipulated. I was just mainly interested in lifting. So I started actively lifting since I was 17, built a decent physique at 19, felt pretty good. Then roughly at 21, this is when I started learning about like, oh, there is something called testosterone and you can actually optimize it. And I was like, man, this is exactly what I want. More muscle, more confidence, like everything that you want. And then I learned about DHT. It's like 10 times stronger than testosterone. It's like, it's just going to give me more of what I want. But we can get more into that. And so I just been obsessing about testosterone and researching. We actually calculated probably theoretically how many hours I've been doing researching. And it's been over 10,000 hours of research over the last 10 years. I'm just like obsessed about them. But yeah, we went through some rough patches along the way, but that's where most of the lessons came from, which is a great journey. I don't regret any of it, but yeah, there's so much more I
That's
can
cool.
say. But
Yeah, I know. I mean, well, you know what they say about 10,000 hours, to become a master at anything, you need to put at least 10,000 hours in. So that means we are speaking to a master today, guys. Yeah, I mean, that's a good that's a good introduction. Why did you want to get into, you know, testosterone optimization? Like, what was it that pulled you towards, why was it specifically testosterone that was the thing that you were like, okay, this is what I need in order to get me to the next level?
yeah, so this is actually quite funny. Um, I was just interested in lifting, and obviously you know about bodybuilders, they use steroids, and I thought like, okay, if I just maximize my testosterone, which obviously these guys have no idea how to do, I'm gonna be the biggest natural bodybuilder on planet Earth. That was kind of what pulled me in and what got me interested in testosterone. I was just like, I'm gonna build more muscle, because I was looking up to people like, what's his name, Rob Riches, um, someone like Michael Hearn. Like I don't know if those guys are natty, or probably not, but that was kind of like I want to be like one of those guys. That's what got me into it. And then the more I did it or researched it, the more it shifted towards the person you become with high androgens, like the way it modifies your behavior and your thinking processes. Because I was actually writing an email about this yesterday. It's about how your looks doesn't equate to confidence. And to me, the confidence aspect became more important because I started lifting weights probably for a confidence aspect. But then it's like, it doesn't really matter like how sexy you are or how big you are or how much muscle or what kind of car you drive, right? If the confidence is coming from the inside, like it's not really going to help you to have all of these external things. So that's what changed later for me, like why I kept going on with testosterone DHT. It changed from the external to more internal. That really like engulfed me.
Yeah, no, I get that. That's very interesting. So, like you mentioned, some of those benefits of increasing your androgens, obviously the building of muscle, but and then obviously confidence. But why? So those are important things as men we want, right? But what else or why else is it important? Would you say to focus on increasing your androgens?
Because I would say androgens enhances every aspect of being a male. Like if you are a leader, you're a protector, you're a lover, you're a caregiver, every single aspect of that is being enhanced by your androgens. You need to be big and strong to be a protector. You need to have the sexual function to recreate, even just with your wife. Right? I'm not talking about multiple women. Like a healthy sex life is very important for a relationship. and then to be an example in the community and be a leading member, like high androgens is going to help you with that. Like high androgen individuals want to make their community better. Depends on how they grew up. There's other factors as well. But androgens in general makes everyone just a better person. And that's why you want to enhance it, because it can enhance every single aspect of your manhood.
Okay. Yeah, no, I definitely agree, and that's very very interesting. I think we'll dive more into that throughout this podcast. But so what? So when we're talking androgens, because obviously a lot of these people watching, like, can you specify what androgens are and the difference between testosterone and DHT, their relationship together? Like, could you give a brief overview of that?
Yeah, sure. Let's start even more back. So you have cholesterol, which people would know, for example, it's found in eggs, but your body can also make it. So cholesterol is converted into pregnenolone, that's the first steroid, and then like DHEA or progesterone coming up to testosterone, up to DHT, stronger androgens. And these weaker androgens, like pregnenolone, progesterone, DHEA, they are structurally very similar to testosterone. And they have their own unique effects. And the reason I say this is because they are structurally different to testosterone. They're structurally very similar, but they have some differences, which gives them their unique effects. The same thing with DHT. There are some changes, some small differences between testosterone and DHT, but because they're structurally different, DHT also has its own unique effects. The reason I bring this up is because a lot of people would say we don't need DHT past puberty. DHT is only necessary for that pubescent development of the sexual organs, beard, whatnot, and you don't need it, which is not true. It has its own unique benefits, right? Sorry, what was the question again? Like, what's the differences in androgens?
Yeah, like what? So you kind of mentioned like the structure. Okay, structurally they're different, but how would you say? Because one thing I've noticed with just like the internet community and like everyone's taking ashwagandha and Fedoja and all these things, but no one ever talks about DHT like in the mainstream. It's always testosterone, testosterone. So like, why is DHT? Well, I could ask you the question: why is DHT overlooked in many aspects, and why shouldn't it be? Why should we pay more attention to it?
Yeah, I would say the more I talk about this, the more I realize even looking only at DHT is a little bit reductionistic, because ultimately it's actually 5-alpha reductase that matters, because 5-alpha reductase is the enzyme that creates DHT. But 5-alpha reductase doesn't just create DHT, it also creates other 5-alpha reduced steroids. That's neurosteroids, neuroprotective, binds with the GABA receptor, makes you feel calm, it's antidepressant, it creates new neurons, right? So if you get a TBI, right, it helps protect against brain damage, like all of these stuff. And then 5-alpha reductase also deactivates your cortisol, makes you more stress resilient. So just looking at DHT is very reductionistic, because there's over 10 different 5-alpha reduced steroids that has their own unique effects. So what's actually important is 5-alpha reductase, and DHT is just our strongest androgen, but there's an unnecessary, unhealthy connection that people make with DHT, because it's so heavily associated with hair loss and prostate issues. I've done some extensive work on this. The root cause is not DHT. The root cause is mitochondrial dysfunction, nutritional deficiencies, oxidative stress. That's really the issue. And then DHT is just there. And then when you block DHT, yes, you might stop the hair loss, but you're not going to regrow it. It is involved, but it's not the causative factor. So I don't want to get too conspiracy theorist about this, but there's been a heavy agenda for people to nuke DHT. Like, it's so bad, you just want to nuke it, and then you become more soy boy, right? You're not as aggressive in life. You're not going so after your goals. Your sexual function suffers. Your physical function in the gym suffers. Like, so many stuff that starts to suffer because of this negative connotation that people have to DHT.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I personally think it's like a psyop from the government to keep us weak, because even like with like trying supplements like Tribulus or whatever, my friends are like, oh, but it increases DHT, like, or creatine, oh, I don't want to take it because I'm going to lose my hair. It's like, and that's quite a widely accepted kind of subconscious thing, and it's kind of scary to think that people are completely cutting off something because they're scared of their hair loss. But I mean, I always thought, I think you said this, it's like, well, if DHT was the reason for hair loss, it peaks in your youth, right? So surely when you're young, you should have the most hair loss. Like it doesn't actually make sense when you actually
Yeah,
think about it.
yeah. Yeah, you should have the biggest prostate and the least hair, and then as you get older, your hair should regrow because your DHT is dropping with age. And that's just like a big scam.
Yeah, yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy, and who knows? Let's not get into conspiracies here. But so what would you say? I mean, you kind of answered the question, but what would you say that if you had to define testosterone and DHT and how they're like what roles they play, and what characteristic each one has, and what's different? What would you say?
Alright, so testosterone can be seen as a more anabolic hormone. When you look at studies, it generally results in more muscle mass gain. But I think the reason for that is because DHT can also convert into estrogen, and estrogen is water loving, it attracts water, so an excess amount of estrogen will make you feel look poofy. So generally, if bodybuilders are going on stage, they're going to use hardening agents like 5-alpha reduced steroids like Anavar or Masteron, Primobolan, those kind of stuff. It's more like a hardening steroid. So you can expect less gains on a DHT kind of steroid because you're not getting as much water into the muscle. So when you look at testosterone, it's getting more hypertrophy. Is it really more hypertrophy, or you just have more water in the muscle? So that's some devil's advocate there. But so generally people would say like testosterone is more anabolic, but that is to be debated. Then a lot of testosterone benefits is actually due to DHT, like the sexual benefits, like the libido aspect, the refractory period, the release of dopamine, the ability to focus, be creative, be able to chill out, because of how it modulates the neurotransmitters, different neurotransmitters in the brain, is heavily dependent on DHT. Like when you inject animals with testosterone, but you use finasteride, it blocks a lot of those benefits of testosterone. So it's there's a lot of benefits given to testosterone that's actually due to DHT, not to testosterone, but a lot of research doesn't differentiate if it's due to testosterone or due to DHT.
Got it. Got it. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, it's interesting because I remember because I think I mentioned this is the reason I got into testosterone was more the sec. You said it was more for the gym. For me, that the gym was a bonus, but the real reason was like the libido, the sexual function. I just didn't have that. Like I didn't have that like potency, especially for someone young. So I always felt like something wasn't right. And yeah, through the years, like I think I found a study that said something like, you know, if your testosterone past 400 nanograms, it like doesn't affect libido past that point. I don't know if you if that's correct or not. Like, but then got
Something
me
like that.
thinking. That was like, okay, well, if that's the case, then that must mean that I can't just be looking at testosterone as the way to increase my libido. There's got to be other factors that are at play. So yeah, so I guess the DHT is a big component of that people don't recognize.
No, I totally agree with you. I've also suffered heavily from all kinds of like sexual stuff. But this is important. Like when you boost libido or optimize your sexual function, erections, those kind of stuff, with herbs, butia, tribulus, whatever the case may be, those compounds don't just stimulate 5-alpha reductase. They also very often modulate dopamine, norepinephrine, oxytocin, glutamate, and so on, which is also heavily involved in your libido. Right, so I always emphasize when someone is boosting DHT and they want to boost it with a specific compound, it's like you're going to get different results from different 5-alpha reductase stimulators. So depending on your goal, you want to use the right compound for that.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I mean, that was actually the biggest like 0 to 100 when it came to sexual function because I was kind of looking for the quick fix. I hadn't really fully put in the foundations properly of like nutrition and things. But taking Tribulus was like, I was like an addict of Tribulus. I was just taking this thing all the time because it was the first time I just felt power. I just felt different, like in a big way, and that was big for me at the time. So yeah, it's super interesting in regards to that. But what I wanted to ask also was what so for you, for example, like on your journey, obviously you went through the training period and then you learn about the confidence. Like what if you were to compare yourself before going through that process and now, like what would you say were the biggest shifts in your personality or your mindset or just how you carry yourself? Like what were the biggest changes based on working on those androgens? And obviously we age and we naturally develop, but some people just they always timid, they're always anxious, and you can tell it's like a metabolic thing rather than personal development thing, you know.
Yeah, yeah. So for me, I would definitely say the two biggest things. Okay, the biggest thing that I can say is the anxiety. Like I always felt like I had a lack of confidence, couldn't stand up for myself. Like anxiety was just too intense. I would always like a freeze response, like can't react. You're just like freezing. It's almost like we were listening to a comedy show the other day, and like the guy was getting robbed after a show, and then he was like taking his wallet out of his pocket, and it's like it's my pleasure. Like here's my wallet, it's my pleasure. Like it's that ultimate. Beta soy boy behavior that I was resonating so much with. It's kind of like you're beating me up and I'm like my pleasure, you know. So that was like really a part of myself that I hated so much, and that was the biggest thing that I felt the difference with maximizing your DHT is like just not caring. It's like a lot of these monsters you just make up in your head. Like I've been thinking about this so much. Like when someone look at you, what do they perceive? Like a bully doesn't just bully someone for the shits and giggles, right? They sense this person is wounded. It's going to allow them to do it. They have, okay, that's a whole nother rabbit hole, but you know what I mean? Like, bullies see you as prey, and for me, it's like I hated feeling like that, and you're projecting prey vibes to everyone, and so maximizing my DHT was more like you're shifting from prey to predator. It's kind of like now you're the guy that's chasing the goals, right? You're the guy that's demanding respect when you walk into a place. Like those were the biggest things for me that I can say that DHT did for me. Like even when you're talking to someone, you're being on a podcast or whatnot, it's like you're afraid, you're timid, like what people say of me, what if I'm making mistakes, like all of those stuff is just like fading away. That was one of the biggest things for me. That's another one, but you want to interject first?
Yeah, I mean, I was gonna. Well, we have another question, but I was gonna just say it now. You know, like because obviously I've been on your website, I've read everything, I've seen, and like there is some relationship between your hormones and just like the pheromones, like being in someone's presence, right? So I don't know. Do you want to touch on that? Like, how does changing your androgens affect, you know, pheromones or whatever, how people perceive you when they meet you? Like, what's at play? Like, how is that working?
Yeah, I think pheromones are really fascinating because it's so multifactorial. When a dominant, so let me talk about this. It's called the Bruce effect. This is this quite interesting example of pheromones. When a new, let's say a male lion walks into a pride and he's more dominant than the current male, he and the probably current male will fight. He will dominate the new male, and if the females are pregnant but they're still early in pregnancy, the females will automatically abort. So that there's no theories as to why this would happen, but they literally automatically abort to make ready for the new male's offspring. And a lot of that is speculated to be due to pheromones. So there was also an experience or an anecdote of Dr. Ray Peat that he mentioned he was using DHEA. And DHEA by 5-alpha reductase is converted into androsterone. Androsterone has pheromonal effects as well. So he was using DHEA at the time. He was wearing a jacket, so your pheromones are going onto the jacket. He was visiting a girl for, I think, non-sexual purposes. It was cold that night, so he gave his jacket to the woman. And the next day, I think she was like having her period off cycle. And so this is obviously just an anecdote, but it could be seen as the Bruce effect, where due to his high androgens, the female was becoming receptive to the new male in the vicinity. So that's how androgens play a role. You can, or pheromones play a role. But you can also think about, like, if someone has high androgens, androgens will automatically change the way you move and behave, right? So your posture is going to be different. The way you move is going to be different. It's not going to be shifty, flighty, deer eyes. It's going to be like a calm, collected, analyzing situation, and like that also gives off vibes. So it's like this multifactorial thing where you behave a certain way, which is creating vibes. Your posture, your muscle tone is creating vibes, and then you have the pheromones. So I would say like pheromones are understudied. I think it's more studied in the context of male, female. Another interesting thing, I think you would find this interesting. When you tan your nutsack, right, direct sunlight exposure, it increases androsterone. I think you reminded me of that study. And yeah. Androsterone, as I mentioned, has a pheromone effect. But what they also found in humans is that the more sunlight people get, the more there was a female to male attraction. They didn't attribute it to androsterone, but I think there's an interesting connection where you get sunlight, your body automatically produces more androgens, more pheromones, and that enhances like sexual attraction between male and females. And most people would say that in the summer they have higher libido, and it could be attributed to sunlight exposure.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. No, that's super interesting. And like obviously, I know that there's a lot of brands like I think like Dior Sauvage, there's the perfume they put something called like hedione in it, which is a pheromone. So it's creating like a lot of women will be like, oh, they don't know why, but they just find someone wearing that perfume more attractive. So that these big companies are using this stuff. Super interesting. I think I read up as well. Well, interested to know your thoughts, but I read up as well about I think it's DHT. Correct me if I'm wrong, but like if you're around other guys who have high DHT, you get into like I don't know, you become more like ready to fight. Like, and I've personally felt this. Like when I'm at the gym and there's these big rugby guys, like chucking the weights around. I don't know. I all of a sudden just feel this urge to like, I need to lift more than them just to prove a point. Like, I don't know what's going on there.
Yeah,
Does that mean I'm
yeah.
healthy? I don't know. Hopefully.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what it means. So there was actually a study on this that I read the other day, where if you have high androgens and you're in the vicinity of other guys with higher androgens, you will automatically become more competitive. But if the other guy is low androgen, you will not be more competitive because you don't need to be because he's not high androgen. But I also wanted to mention about the pheromonal thing. If you just use a pheromone and not enhance your androgens, it's not going to change your mindset or the way you behave. So if someone is like low androgens and he's got weak posture and like a weak belief system and those kind of stuff, but he uses pheromones, like that's dangerous, right? So like a female is not just going to be attracted to someone based on smell. She is looking at how you're behaving, both physically and thinking mentally. Those kind of stuff is really important.
Yeah, that's super interesting because I remember like on my journey with this, I always thought to myself like, okay, great, I could buy a perfume, but that's not me. That's not me, I wanted to get to a point where because I heard that, if you have these high androgens, like women are very attracted to like your scent, right? Your natural scent. And if it was like if they are, that means that you have like good health, good androgens, right? So yeah, I always kind of pursued that, you know, to, in a way. But yeah, that's super interesting. And I wanted to ask another question related. So you mentioned changing your posture and doing these things. So that has a positive effect on your androgens. But what about just pure mindset, like belief systems? Like, is there any kind of research to that on in terms of how that affects your hormones?
Yeah, for sure. Like what you think of and the wolf you feed. I don't know if you heard about. It's like I think it's a Chinese saying or something like that. But you have a black wolf, you have a white wolf, and the wolf you feed is going to be the one that grows the biggest, and that's going to dominate in your mind. So be very careful what wolf you feed. This is in everything in life. So if you consistently think negative thoughts and you are degrading towards yourself and whatnot, it is going to change your behavior and the actions you take. So the actions you take ultimately is going to be the most important because you still want to eat right, you still want to lift weights, you still want to actively improve your life. You are never going to outthink non-action. But what I can
Hmm.
also say is that if someone doesn't change their androgens, and this was more so the case with me, is I could be, I don't know, thinking I don't know, I'm Thor, right? But like back in the day when I was anxious AF, I could be walking around in town thinking like, man, I'm the shit. But like deep down the back of your mind, you're like, okay, you're an anxious little shit because your androgens are low. And it's like, you can't fake low DH, you can't fake low GABA signaling, for example. And so that was the case for me. Like I couldn't mindset my way out of anxiety, right?
Yeah.
Um, yeah, yeah.
I get what you mean. Yeah, so it's like purely, it's like there's both sides of the coin you've got to fix, but in that case, like at a certain point, it is purely like a physiological thing. It's not, what I mean? It's not like personal development is kind of the way I see it. And I think that's a big thing people miss with, it's kind of why I wanted to have you on as a guest because I think a lot of guys are trying to make more money. They're trying to self-improve. They're trying to become more confident with the women. And it's like going inside yourself. And it's like taking the car to the customs shop and adding in a new engine, adding in this, adding in that, rather than just trying to be a better driver. You're actually taking that car, you're making the spec like more powerful. And that's how I see it. I think if you're a guy and you're not taking these things on board, you're kind of foolish. Like you are literally shooting yourself in the foot because and it's like almost like the default is failure because we're living in a time where so many endocrine disruptors and like even just the mindset, like masculinity is toxic and all this stuff. Like the world is actually against you, so you actually have, like back in the day, like 50 years ago, whatever. We didn't have to try. Like this wasn't something we had to talk about. But now it's becoming that. You know what I mean? So that's super interesting. What was I gonna say? I was gonna say though, like you mentioned some of those symptoms. Like so, for someone who's maybe listening now and they're thinking, wait, so like, how do I know if, like, they don't really know where they stand in this conversation. Like, how would someone tell? What are some key things that would be like an indicator that maybe they are suffering of lowest testosterone or symptoms of, low androgens?
I would say the biggest thing is like if you know you can do better, you're looking for that edge. A lot of people are looking for the edge, and I think like that is a sign that you probably can do with higher DHT. Like if you feel like, okay, well, I'm having sex once a week and I'm making gains in the gym, but how do I compare with like really the elite guys? And honestly, to be an elite guy, it's not that hard. You just have to be consistently and training hard and like get there. But if you really struggle to get there, it's like, okay, well, maybe you need to be looking into why that's not happening. Why aren't you actually making the progress? Like progress is progress, but mediocre progress is not ideal progress. You actually make really good progress. I would say that's kind of like the biggest thing. Like, are you better than last time? And would you say you're better than average? In like most things, that's how I would like rate it. But you always have to compare yourself with yourself.
Is that more based? Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. But is that more based on feeling, like in terms of how you feel, or is that your actual outputs? Like, what would you say?
Yeah, because like if you can be doing all of the output, but if you're not seeing results for your output, like why are you not adapting? Right? If is your androgens not on place, or why aren't you getting the adaptations you're looking for? Because like your androgens are mostly responsible for, like, let's say, new neural growth. So if you're learning something, your body's going to create new neurons to solidify that learning that you made. But let's say it's not happening. It's like, why is it not happening? Why am I not getting confident? Why am I not making strength gains? All of those stuff.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So would you say, like, for example, like let's say someone lacks motivation, like they're an entrepreneur, let's say, and they lack motivation. Do you feel so? Would you say there's a correlation that if you just took time focused on increasing your androgens, you will suddenly get that spark of motivation? Like, do people that have higher androgens make more money? Are they more successful? Is there like a correlation there?
In general, I would say yes, because like androgens increases your desire to do things. And I'm actually writing an email about this today, is how androgens give you purpose, but not like, it's not like you don't have purpose without androgens. It's just like you walk with more purpose. Like you have more ambition and drive. You have more motivation to do things. You have more energy. Like all of those stuff just automatically come when your androgens are higher. But like it's always multifactorial. Like let's say I feel weirdly anxious, and it's like, okay, well, like why am I feeling anxious? And then I analyzed, like, was there something that happened? It's like, oh yes, I have this email and I have to like address my tax or something like that, but I just put it in the back of my mind, and that was creating anxiety. So like that's something you have to deal with. But if you feel excessively hypersensitive to stress in general, like that's something to look into. It's like, okay, why am I feeling excessively hyperstressed? Right? So it's always multifactorial stuff.
No, that makes I know exactly what you're saying, because I remember like my early journey, like I would have like full blown panic attacks, or like a girl would sit next to me and I would, like, my heart would be racing out of my chest, and do you know what I mean? Like that's not. Do you know what I mean? Like everyone has stresses, everyone has stresses in life. But I get what you're saying. You're basically saying that, okay, just because you're stressed because of a bill doesn't mean you have low T. But, if you are just chilling and for some reason you feel that anxiety or whatever, that's a sign that, you are suffering. So I get what you mean. But would you say also that, so like, in theory then, right, does that mean that if you increase your androgens, you're able to take on more stress, like, in your life? Like, these things don't affect you as much?
Again, like it's multifactorial, because like you can learn how to deal with it better. Like you will see people that's really good at stress, but they have low T. And it's because like they've just learned, they've adapted to it. It's like if you sit next to a girl and you get heart palpitations, it's probably because you just haven't done it enough. And then if you talk to 100 girls, you're probably not going to get that same heart palpitations, depending on the intention, until you meet the one, and then you get like a new kind of heart palpitation. But on the flip side, it's like, yes, you can also talk to 100 girls, but if your hormones are on point, doesn't mean you won't get anxiety, because your hormones is what basically helps with that. Right? So even like that exposure therapy is creating new neurons, like a learned behavior, which androgens are involved in. So like in both cases, like you can be stress resilient but have low T, but it's probably like a learned response over a long time. Like maybe you already dealt with let's say public speaking, right? You just started public speaking, you maybe had higher androgens when you started, so you got over the fear faster, and then because of that learned ability, now you have low T, but you don't get stressed anymore because it's already a learned ability, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. But yeah, I mean that's very interesting. I think the key thing here is, just yeah, I think what we spoke about so far is I would say showcase the importance of your androgens. So I can imagine at this stage of the conversation, there's guys asking the question, okay, well, you've told us the importance of it. Like, what can I actually do? So where would you take that conversation if I was to ask you that question? I know that's a
All right,
very, very like that's pretty broad. But yeah.
yeah. All right, so I would start with the top. You can always get some blood work because I hate it when people just guess. And like, I feel high testosterone. It's like, okay, well, did you taste? No. Because I felt amazing and my T was like really low. So just get it tested. So the first thing is you want to optimize your diet and you want to optimize your gut health, sleep, environment. You want to start with all of the basic stuff. You recently did a really good video on like how to increase testosterone. So I would start with that, all of the basic stuff. Then you can assume that your body is optimizing testosterone because you're doing all the right stuff, but you can also test to see if it's actually happening, because I work with a lot of guys that they're doing everything right, but they're just not going anywhere, and there's like other underlying issues, so that's why you want to test. So when it comes to DHT optimization, you want to make sure that your total testosterone is high, then you want to make sure your free testosterone is high. So if your free T is low, but your total T is high, you're not going to be converting a lot into DHT. So you want to make sure your free T is high, and then you also want to make sure your 5-alpha reductase is high. Because if 5-AR is not high, you're not going to convert regardless of how high your free T is. Then we have promoters of 5-alpha reductase. The biggest ones is going to be IGF-1 and T3, so you want to have those tested. And also your body can create DHT from DHEA. So you can test your adrenal hormones, DHA sulfate. So those are the ones that I would test to see, like, is there any kind of hiccup in the system that's preventing me from having a high DHT. So for any guy that's healthy, I would literally just start them on just optimize your T. And if everything's working as they should, your body will automatically create enough DHT. That's going to be the simple answer.
Yeah, no, I got you. That makes a lot of sense. I mean, so just kind of a curious question, like what obviously society says there's a certain level of testosterone that's quote unquote normal, but what would you say, well, what would you say is a good like number to aim for, and what would you say is possible? Because I know you've hit like what 1,200 or maybe more, I don't know.
Yeah. Okay, so from what I've seen, okay, so we have in testotribe, we have one guy, he is 1,500. He varies around 1,400, 1,500, but every single time he has tested, that's where he is, right? So even if you look at studies, some people, they just don't focus on T optimization, they just have high T. And these people tend to just feel good overall, they're confident, tend to build muscle a little bit easier. But very often the body can also compensate for having higher T because their androgen receptor is not as sensitive. So very often there could be some form of a compensation. Like these guys don't automatically look like the Hulk, right? They don't have some kind of superior benefit really. Like if you have 600 nanogram per deciliter and you're training hard, you're doing all the right stuff, you can compete with someone that's 2,000 nanogram per deciliter naturally, because there's still like these fluctuations during the day. Then we have another guy, he increased his testosterone from 900 and something over to 2000 in 1 year, which is freaking crazy. So there's no side effects to him having high T. And the thing is, like, even people that have that kind of high T, they still have other things that they would like to optimize. So I would say regardless of your T, there's no side effect to having high T. There's literally no side effect to T, just having high T. You just want to make sure your estrogen is not getting out of control. And you still have to do the hard work. If you want to build muscle, you got to lift, you got to recover, you got to eat right. You still have to look after yourself. Like, even having high T is not really a cheat code for life. I would say some people are lucky that they can have high T while not even focusing on it. Other people have to focus much harder on it. I hope that kind of answers your question.
Yeah, that does answer the question. So are you in a way saying that there's guys out there that might look jacked and look great physically, but actually have really low T levels and feel like trash?
Yeah. Because that's also genetics in how responsive they are to insulin or IGF-1, and how effectively their muscles are taking up amino acids, responding to insulin, DNA transcription, how elevated is their myostatin. Myostatin is an inhibitor of muscle growth. Like, there's so many factors when it comes to muscle growth that I would say that muscles is actually not a good marker for someone's testosterone status.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. So what would be the like? What is the limit then? Like, where you said 2000, is that kind of as far? What should guys aim for? Like, if they get into this, like, what is possible? Is that some people can hit 2000, or can everyone do that? Like, what do you think?
Yeah.
Is it even worth
So I
going
was
that far? Is that necessary? Like,
Yeah. All right. So I can say my lowest testosterone was 190. That was my lowest. My highest was 2,400, but I was injecting 500 milligrams of testosterone a week. I can
oh,
say that my libido was not like, okay, so there's multiple factors, right? So, okay, let me just backtrack real quick. The reason why I injected testosterone is because I wanted to see what supraphysiological levels would feel like compared to my 1,200. Like, would I feel a difference between 1,200 and 2,400? That's why I did it. And I can tell you that my libido wasn't higher. I wasn't necessarily more confident compared to 600 Danica per deciliter. My energy wasn't higher. My motivation and drive wasn't higher. Like, I would rather say focusing on DHT did more of the heavy lifting, important things for me. Like, if I ask myself, like, what's important to me? It's like, okay, sexual function is important, like having high libido and a robust love life and wife. Then being able to just work if I need to, like, crunch it, work, do what needs to be done, grow the business. That's important to me. Like, can I be creative? Can I do the work? I'm not fatigued. I don't have brain fog. Like, that's important to me. And then obviously making strength gains in the gym and being a calm individual. Like, those are the things that matters to me. It's like, which compounds helped you the most in those areas? Every single time was more a DHT boosting compound than a testosterone boosting compound.
got it, got it. So ultimately, those kind of numbers, it is just a case of getting your DH to a certain point, and it's like how you feel. Is that kind of the best? Obviously, you want to look at the
Yeah,
numbers, but at a certain point, it's like what you know. If you feel good, well, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, as they say.
yeah. I would say so. It's absolutely. I don't want to say it depends on how you feel, because like I've had very low T and I felt fine. Like that's why you want to taste, but it doesn't help if you have 2,000 but you feel shit, right? It's feelings still matter, so you want to look at both numbers. But I would say like if you're jacked, you have high libido, you have morning wood, your sleep is amazing, your energy is amazing, you're crushing in the business, you're crushing in every aspect of life, but your T is like 500. Who cares?
Got it. Okay, cool. That's a good way. So you don't need like, you don't actually need to have. So like essentially, what you're saying is 500 is like technically okay.
Well, for like it depends on the individual, right? Like how sensitive they are.
Right.
Some people need more, and they will feel a difference between 300 and 1,000. I just didn't. Maybe I'm just more sensitive to my androgens. Yeah, like it depends on how you feel with different levels of androgens. So for some people, it's really night and day difference. For me, it wasn't.
Okay, interesting. So would you say this is like when it comes to the testing, like it's quite a minefield a little bit? Like if you don't know what to look for, would you say for most people?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So I would look at a multitude of different things. Like I've worked with people, like when you look at their labs, it's like, man, Dan, you're healthy, man. But then their testosterone's like under 400, and it's like, okay, well, that's also not normal. And we know that this person can do better. It's like, okay, then you have to do like really sensitive deep dives. It's like, why is this person like? Do they have nutritional deficiencies? Do they have gut issues, bacterial overgrowth? Like you want to look at like the minuscule strains into what might be going on. Like sometimes it can get complicated, but sometimes it's obvious. Like, oh, this person just have elevated inflammation. You can see like he's resistant to his thyroid hormone. Like there's some obvious stuff, but sometimes it can get complicated. Like just going to a doc and you're in the reference ranges is not, very often not good enough.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think if you're going to go to a doctor and look for a test, it's probably like an internal, because if there's no problem, you're not even going to think about it. Do you know what I mean? Like, if you feel great, why would you? It's not going to be in your awareness. So There
Yeah.
must be some issue. All right, that's cool. Sorry, you go.
No, I just wanted to mention like I would say like when it comes to your health, it's more important than just how you feel because like someone said like I was feeling fine, I was running marathons and then I had a heart attack. It's like, okay, well,
Yeah,
clearly you weren't doing okay. And like in that makes more sense to test like your lipid panel, liver panel, like those markers, like how healthy you are, is more important than how high your T is. And like if you're healthy in general and your T is in a decent spot and you're feeling great, then I don't think it's like that bad. You're sensitive to it.
got it. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, because I think like the androgen receptors, no one really, because I always think of it as like a, well, yeah, like the androgen, because you might have the testosterone, but if it doesn't bind to anything, like what's the point? So would you say that's another component of this whole conversation is like androgen receptivity? Because I remember like I think I went through a phase where I was like just increase androgen receptor density because I just noticed that when I did that, one I felt like I could fight anyone at any time, and two I was just like I just looked bigger. Like couldn't explain why. Do you know what I mean? It didn't make sense, but I was just bigger. Like my shoulders were bigger, my chest was bigger, my voice was deeper. Like genuinely, like so that was pretty cool. But I assume that I attributed that to the androgen receptors. But yeah,
What specifically did you do to upregulate your androgen receptors?
I think honestly I was just. I mean, I think I went through that phase of like thinking that I could just live off supplements. So I was just I was just messing around with stuff. So I think I used carnitine, forskolin or forskolite, whatever it's called, tribulus, glycine, taurine. I was pretty much just on your website, just firing different supplements, ticking them off the list, just because I was interested. Like, but I definitely noticed when like, especially with glycine and taurine, I remember using it, and just I don't know, there was like a different energy about me. Like, I don't know what it is. I'm not saying that testosterone makes you aggressive, but I just, when you mentioned about like, in certain situations you would shy away. It was like I would watch a video of a fight on my phone and I'd be like, yeah, I need to help that person. Like it would just take over me. I'd be like, it was pretty crazy. I mean, I mean, this is kind of a bit random, but I remember taking Tribulus and someone actually like hit me and I ended up getting into a fight and I took on like three guys at once. And, I was just I was just on a different level of aggression that like I didn't even know I was capable of, So it kind of opened my eyes that I don't know, it's kind of crazy, but it made me realize that, like these things are important. Because you don't want to be in a situation where like someone breaks into your house and you're scared to go do something. Like that could be a life and death situation, or and you don't want to shy away from that. So that's why I feel like it's sort of your responsibility to keep on top of your health so that you
Yeah.
can respond to any life situation. You never know. You might see someone that needs help and oh no, I'm scared to do something. And that might haunt you for the rest of your life that you never did anything. And if you'd have just optimized your T levels, you wouldn't have overthought the situation. You would have just done what you need to do. And that's the problem in our society is most people just don't have testosterone. And like that's why I mean let's not turn it into a conspiracy video, but do you know what I mean? Like I'm pretty sure there was a study that, guys that have more testosterone are more likely to disagree with like an ideology or an opinion. Like they don't
Right.
care about what other people think.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember something like that. They're very much more. They don't follow. They're not cheap. If I have to summarize it.
Yeah, yeah, super interesting. But yeah, I mean, that's fascinating. But what were we just talking about? I kind of I think I went off on a tangent there. But yeah, that's kind of some of the things I did androgen receptor wise. But it was mainly more focusing on supplements and obviously diet to a degree, but just playing around with different supplements and things.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's cool, man. Like androgen receptors. If I have to, ultimately, like what enhances your sensitivity to androgens is going to be you don't have any nutritional deficiencies and you don't have oxidative stress. Like when an androgen binds to the androgen receptor, there's some DNA transcription that's taking place, and you need to be in a low oxidative state for that to happen, so that proper transcription can happen. And then also you need the micronutrients for that process to happen. So you need all the cofactors, and then you need to prevent all of the roadblocks. That's kind of like the main way of doing it. And then you can throw in things like forskolin, which is going to increase caffeine, for example, tribulus, those kind of stuff. They're going to make a difference. But again, it's like multiple factors, like how they influence how you feel. It's not just ultimately androgen receptors.
Yeah, I mean, what would you say? Because thinking of myself back years ago, it was literally I just jumped to the supplement. I was like, I forget the nutrition. I just want the quick fix. Like to someone who's got that mindset, what would you say to them? Just as a piece of advice.
Yeah, I would say like it's fine to jump to supplements as long as your diet and lifestyle and all of those other stuff's in point. Because I can say from my experience, like although food has made a really big difference in lifestyle, it's not always enough for the kind of lifestyle that you would like to lead. Sometimes you feel like you need a little bit of an extra edge, and supplements can definitely give that to you.
Yeah, no, that's definitely true. So what supplements would you say are the ones that have kind of stood the test of time and stick out to you? You would, that you've used that have had that like biggest benefit on you.
I would say for calmness, it's definitely going to be augmentin. Like, just feeling so damn chill and calm, it's just freaking amazing. Androsterone is also pretty cool in that aspect. I just don't like the topical application of it because it just sits there on your skin for like 2 hours and you don't even know how much is being absorbed. So that's a little bit of pain in the ass for me. Tribulus was good. I'm going to be experimenting with it again soon, but with much more standardized extract. I remember using it when I was really anxious, and it did help a lot against anxiety, and then putting that aggressiveness back into your life, where it's like, I'm not going to back down. I'm going to do what's necessary. So that was really good. When it comes to like also calmness, sleep, and focus, it's going to be like glycine, which also upregulates 5-alpha reductase. Taurine I'm a big fan of that. Buteo is really good for me for sexual function and libido. Androsterone also is good for refractory period benefits. What else? I think those are
Do
kind
you
of
like?
the main ones that's on top of my mind.
I mean, what about like Tonkat Ali? Because that's quite popular, but I do think that is quite a reasonable, you know, suggestion.
Yeah, I was using really high dose of Tonkat, and I don't know if the dose was just too high and it was like harming my body in a way, but I didn't really notice as much benefits from Tonkat, even in really high dose compared to Butia or androsterone and stuff like that, or even 11-keto DHT. I noticed those more like DHT boosting compounds over Tonkat.
Got it. No, that's interesting. And what about the lacto? I don't know. I just find it really interesting. It's like lactobacillus reuteri. Like, would you say? Because I put that in my video. I was like, yeah, just get this because I just think it's cool. Like, but do you think that's a worthy thing to implement?
Yeah, I would say in general, the fact that it lowers inflammation, my biggest benefit that I got from Rudery was probably like the recovery benefits of it. Just feeling like better, like fast recovery, probably due to lower inflammation. And I, I, I can't really recall, like, if you stop using a supplement for a few months, you kind of like forget how you felt. But I did think I noticed some mood uplifting benefits, but it wasn't as prominent.
I see. Yeah, because obviously it increases oxytocin, and like I just find that kind of crazy. So what are the benefits of the oxytocin? Like, does that play a role in DHT as well?
Yes, yeah. So oxytocin stimulates 5-alpha reductase. Oxytocin actually has a lot of benefits. It modulates the immune system. It doesn't just modulate like love, bond, trust, those kind of stuff. It can actually also help with fat loss and building muscle, increasing DHT, increasing IGF-1, calming the immune system, lowering inflammation, improving sleep quality. Being neuroprotective, there's a lot of benefits to oxytocin in and of itself. It's actually misqualified as like the love or trust hormone.
Interesting. But does it also have that effect though? Like, because wasn't there a study where they put rats in like a glass box or something with water, and the rats that had the Raturi just kept swimming where the other rats gave up. Is that right, or am I mistaken again?
I, you're putting me on the spot. I don't know. I can't recall. Like,
Oh, sorry.
probably.
Sorry. Yeah, I'm just like it's just something I remember, but I don't know. I just found that quite interesting. But yeah, I mean, there's loads of different things you can take. Um, but yeah, I mean, was there anything else though you kind of wanted to kind of touch on? Like, is there anything I don't know, maybe yeah, I mean, I don't know. Was there any extra things you wanted to cover in terms of DHT optimization, or just in regards to it? If someone wants to kind of go in this direction, like, what would what are the key? I don't know, is there anything else on your mind? Is what I'm trying to say.
All right. Yeah, I think we covered a lot, so I can just summarize as to if someone is interested in DHT, and they're afraid of hair loss. First of all, it's like that's a big scam. Like I was thinking about this the other day. Imagine people go to the doctor because they have hair loss, and the doctor, they don't even test DHT. They just immediately put someone on finasteride. Like imagine just how insane that is, right? You have no idea how high someone's DHT is. So DHT is involved in hair loss. It doesn't cause it, so you want to fix the root cause. But I would say that most people feel benefits when they maximize their DHT. Even if it's normal, even if it's supposedly optimal, they do notice an extra edge and extra benefits when they start maximizing it. But I would start with testosterone optimization, then doing proper tests, and then using a specific supplement for your specific goal and what you need. And then you can even stack it. Like you don't have to use one. You can use like 3 different boosters at the same time to like hit all your goals at the same time.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. What just finally as well, what about training in all of this? Like, would you say that's an important component, or is that kind of like one of them things that could be a double-edged sword where it could work in your favor, work against you?
Yeah, I love training if the training is right, because training, if you know you're capable, is going to give you an additional sense of confidence. Like it doesn't help if you're high T and DHT, but you can't even defend yourself. You're not physically capable. It's like it's also not going to help. So this is why when I do the DHT Power Aura transformation, like I focus on diet, supplements, and training, so you get the full package. You do the right exercises to enhance your posture, to enhance strength and explosiveness and power. So when you walk and when you move, it's not just like this bulky bodybuilder walking. It's like this athletic hunter animal that's like capable of being physically capable, right? A bodybuilder can't just sprint and jump and fight and be functional because they're like big and slow. And I know because that's what I've been doing. It made me completely dysfunctional and slow. It just did. So I would say like you have to do the right kind of training depending on like what your goal is. Like if you want to be a bodybuilder and powerlifter, awesome, go hit those goals. But for me, my goals are to be strong and explosive and powerful and be a functional athletic while being big. And so training for that is a little bit different than just training for powerlifting and bodybuilding. But as you mentioned, like you can overdo it. If you train too much, that is going to lower your T and keep it a little bit lower. But it depends on. I think a lot of people do too much volume. They think they need to follow this Phil Heath bodybuilding program, and like you don't need that much volume, right? You can actually get really good adaptations from quite a low volume program.
Yeah, I think like I don't know. That's one thing I've noticed with the fitness community is it's like, oh, you got to hit your macros. I mean, obviously that is important, but it's like it's like calories in, calories out. So it's just they're missing out on the micronutrients, and it's just all about aesthetics and like hitting. You know, I feel like people set these programs and they push their body through it. Whereas with me, I've always kind of trained like, oh, you know what? Like, I feel like I can push today. I'm gonna push. But you know what? Today I'm just gonna taper off a little bit and just take it easier because I just know that if I push too much, I do just feel like my nervous system's fried, and I do feel like a drop in my vitality, so to say. So yeah, it's kind of one of these things. Well, from my experience, it's like a never-ending. You know, it's like a lifestyle. You know what I mean? You have to kind of take on this lifestyle. It's not just like a magic pill, you know. But you have to kind of make that choice because you either choose to take responsibility for your health and these things, or you just let the world be in charge of you, and it's not going to lead you somewhere where good, you know. So that's why I think this is an important conversation to have.
Yeah, and just to emphasize, it's not hard. Like I think sometimes people might get the idea like this is too hard. No, it's not. It's just you just have to eat slightly different foods. That's micronutrient dense. That's not inflammatory to the person, and don't do crazy stuff. Like don't stay up late. At least get your sleep. You don't have to do crazy biohacks. Wake up with the sun and like do sun gazing for 10 minutes every morning. Like there's a lot of unnecessary stuff. You don't have to ice your nutsack. There's a lot of stuff you don't have to do. Just eat healthy and be consistent with it, right? And that's basically all you need to do. That's a minimalistic approach.
Yeah, it's like the 20% that gets you the 80% of the results. Like just focus on that. It's true though. You know, if you just get a good night's sleep, like it's a night and day a difference. But yeah, honestly, it's been a great episode. I think there's a lot of value in here. Was there any final comments you wanted to say?
I think like we can get too much in detail with this kind of stuff. So I think we said a lot, and I hope we opened up people's eyes to what DHT is. It's not just like a enhance your penor and grow bigger beard hormone. It's literally there to make you a better person and enhance every aspect of your life. So that's what really got me interested in DHT and get me more interested in DHT. Is like, how does it change you as a person? And that became the most meaningful to me.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I feel like I hope we've conveyed that well to the audience. But yeah, so in terms of where people can find you, what's the best way to kind of find you?
Yeah, I'm mostly on X. That's where I post my content, and I have a newsletter, so you can check that out. But otherwise, if someone needs any specific help from me, labs, diet, whatnot, I'm on Testotribe, so you can find me there.
Amazing. Well, yeah, I'll put all those links in the description. But Hans, thank you so much for coming on, and hopefully have you on again sometime soon.
That's my pleasure, man, and really appreciate this opportunity.